who is leading Seders or participating in a Seder, and whether you've never been to a Seder before or this is your, dozens and dozens of times at a Seder, hopefully we'll learn new aspects that we can bring to this year's unique experience. So I'm going to try to go back and forth with the document and our faces so that we can also get to see each other and speak to each other. If you don't have anything to say, I would ask you to mute yourself. I think I have the power to mute you all, but that would require me to multitask. So what we're going to start off with today is Halach Ma'anya, which is the very beginning of the Pesach Haggadah that starts the Magid section. So just a word of background before I share the text. Halach Ma'anya is, as we'll see, it's really three separate sentences, and we'll see that they actually come in different orders depending on which Haggadah you're using. And they were never in the Haggadah from Eretz Yisrael. They were basically, like the Siddur, two traditions of the Haggadah, the Eretz Yisrael tradition and the Babylonian tradition, broadly speaking. The Babylonian tradition has various versions of Halach Ma'anya. The Eretz Yisrael tradition does not. And that's why scholars now think that Halach Ma'anya is specifically a Gaonic creation. The leaders of the Jewish community in Iraq following the Talmud added this to their Haggadah, even though it seems to be a fairly old edition. It's not something that appears in the Talmud. As we'll see tomorrow, the Talmud really starts with Manish Tana in the Magid section. But this is the way that most of our Haggadot today, since almost the Babylonian tradition, that's how we start off today. So I'm going to share my screen. Hold on one second. Okay. Just raise your hand if you can see the screen. Good. Okay. And Elise, who's helping us manage this call, is going to pop this PDF in the chat box in just a moment. Okay, so let's just start off with the actual text. And those of you who learned with me before know that I usually like to read the text and ask as many questions as we can on it. So if there are questions that come up during the reading of the text, I want you to hold on to those, and we may be able to ask them and maybe even answer some of them. Okay, Halach Ma'anya. Di'achalu avatana be'ara de Mitzrayim. This is the bread of affliction, or whatever anya means. We're going to come back to that. This is the bread of affliction, the bread of poverty that our ancestors ate in the land of Egypt. Kol dichfin yete v'yechol, kol ditzrich yete v'yifsach. All who are hungry, come and eat. All who are in need, come and, I'm translating here, do Pesach. That either means literally do the Pesach sacrifice or do all the things that you're supposed to do for Pesach. I'm going to try to make the screen larger. Is that better? Can people see that better now? Yeah? Okay. Third sentence, Hashata. Hashata hacha lishata de'atya, or lishana haba'ah. That has you'll notice there's some Hebrew mixed in. The older versions seem to have the entire thing in Aramaic. So lishata de'atya just means lishana haba'ah, next year. Be'ara Yisrael, be'eretz Yisrael. And hashata avdei lishata de'atya lishana haba'ah b'nei chorim. This year we are slaves, and next year we are free. So these are the three sections to Halach Ma'anya. And I want to show you that that they didn't always come as a triad in the way that we have it in our Haggadah. And as you'll see, each of these could be its own, sort of its own theme, its own separate issue that they're dealing with. The first one seems to be talking about the matzah itself, that you're going to hold up the matzah or the plate with the matzah. And then we have an invitation for those who are hungry and those who are in need. And then we seem to have a sort of a request or a prediction, a hopeful prediction, that this year we're here and next year in the land of Israel. This year we're slaves. Next year we are free. Okay. I saw that Elise just shared the document if it's easier for you to open on your computer. Sidur Rav Sadia Gaon. Rav Sadia, who is living in the 9th century, he has his own Sidur, and this is all he has. He flips the third what we have as the third section. That's his first section. That's how he opens his Magid section with Hashata Hacha Lishana, which scholars think means Lishana Ba'ah, Be'aradi Yisrael, Hashata Avdei Lishana, B'nei Chari, B'nei Chorin, Kol Dichvin Yetev Yechol, Kol Ditrich Yetev Yifsach. So just you can see that, hopefully Elise can change the doc setting so anybody can view it. The version we have in Sidur Sadia Gaon just lets you know that these sentences could be ordered in different ways. And we have other versions that I brought you here that put them in different ways. You can say it in some versions of the Geniza, it just has Hashata Hacha L'Shata L'Shana Ba'a Ba'arad Yisrael, Hashata Avdei L'Shana Ba'a B'nei Chorin. Forget about Halach Ma'anya and forget about Kol Dichbin. They just have a request. It's actually a nice bracket because how do we end our Seder? L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim Habnuya, which actually has its own history, but this would be a nice way you begin and you end your Seder with next year will be somewhere else. Okay, I wanted to bring one other thing, which is always curious about halach ma'anya, which is to say, if I am inviting you in to eat, how come I didn't invite you in earlier? Like, why didn't you come and have karpas with me? So it turns out that scholars have pointed out Haggadah Chazal, which is a wonderful publication of the Safrai, father and son team, Shmuel and Zev Safrai. They note that in all the old versions of the Haggadah, old actually, this was after Kiddush. So you could imagine this really being an invitation very much at the beginning. Okay. Avdei, someone's asking, Harvey's asking, Avdi is, I was a slave. I think it's Avdei. We were like the plural of Avadim in Aramaic is, we are slaves, or slaves, probably more literally. Okay, now I'm gonna, that's sort of just the background on the three sections of this, and it's a little bit of its history. We're gonna go into try to understand what it means a little bit. I'm just gonna stop sharing for 1 second. If anybody has any questions or any comments, I think we max out at 100 people on this Zoom call, so I don't know if they're, but anyways, if you wanna chat a question, you're welcome to chat a question or try to raise your hand if I can unmute you. Hearing none, I'm going to move on. Okay, to keep this bite size. Going back to sharing my screen. Okay, so let's talk about halach ma'anya. What does it mean to say lechem oni, lach ma'anya? So we have a number of different interpretations of what lechem oni means. And that's something that I think actually is a great opening to the Haggadah, because the whole point of the Haggadah, as you'll see when you study with me over the next week and a half, is that the Haggadah is meant to invite different interpretations of things that we think are fixed. In other words, if I say to you, oh yeah, I know what halach ma'anya is, it means this is the bread of affliction. Actually, you can't really nail down a lot of words in the Haggadah to one singular meaning. There's a lot of variety of meaning, and that's part of the point of Haggadah. That's part of how we tell the story of Mitzrayim every year over and over again, because so many things could be interpreted in different ways. So I want to give you examples of this from Lechem Oni, the ways in which it is interpreted in rabbinic literature. So first is probably the most famous from the Bavli, Amar Shmuel, Lechem Oni, which is a quote from Deuteronomy 16:3. Lechem she'onin alav dvarim. What is lechem oni? Not actually the bread of affliction, but oni, like la'anot, means to answer or to respond. Lechem, it's the bread on which we respond on it with words. That is to say, it's literally the conversation piece of the meal. This is the thing that we recite the Haggadah over. So lechem oni is not, in Shmuel's interpretation, not bread of affliction, but rather the bread in which we talk about things, we answer, we speak, we respond. Tanya Namiyachid is an old tradition that says the same thing. Lechem she'onin alav darim harbe. Many things we say around this bread. And then there's the more sort of usual interpretation, davar acher, another interpretation, actually enacting what it means to do lechem oni, where onin darav darim harbe. We're answering a number of interpretations for this phrase, lechem oni. Lechem oni, oni ketib, that is to say, it's spelled without a vav. It's written ayin nun yud chaser, missing the vav. That is to say, it's reduced, it's small, it's not as big as it could be. Oni, ma ani shedarko bi prusa, afkan bi prusa. Just as a poor person, their way is to only eat a slice of bread as opposed to a whole bread, so too here we eat a slice of bread. Now, and you can see this, I just took the translation from Safaria, which is the Steinsaltz translation. You can see that prusa has its own set of meanings, a piece of matzah. But think about it as normally on Shabbat, you have 2 full loaves of bread. What's striking about the halach ma'anya, which comes right after yachatz, when we break the bread before we say hamotzion, which is very unusual. That is, in some ways, to act out this idea of lechem oni. It's the bread of poor people, that is to say, it's not a full loaf, and that's something that we are sort of setting out at the beginning of the Seder experience. So we have lechem she'onin alav dvarim, or dvarim harbe. This is the answering bread, the speaking bread, the bread in which we speak, or the bread that is oni, that is poor, that is reduced, that is only a slice. A couple others that I wanted to bring you, Sifrei Devarim, old rabbinic commentary on Deuteronomy. B'Shimon Omer, Lama nikra lechem oni. Why is it called bread of oni? Ela al shem inui shanit anu b'mitzrayim. This is because of the afflictions, inui, that the Egyptians afflicted on us. This is probably the more standard translation that we have. The bread of affliction, not the bread of poverty. The bread of affliction. Now, poverty and affliction are related, and they're related etymologically, but this is meant to summon up the experience of the Egyptians afflicting us, doing inui on us. That's the same root of the word that we are meant to do on ourselves on Yom Kippur. Actually, there's some links between Pesach and Yom Kippur. And this is one of them in which we afflict ourselves on Yom Kippur, and Pesach, we remember how we were afflicted. And finally, the last one I wanted to bring, Uma Talmud Lomar Lechem Oni, from the Mechilta, another old rabbinic midrash on Exodus. Uma Talmud Lomar Lechem Oni. What's the explanation of Lechem Oni? Shelo yalush lo b'yayin v'lo b'shemen v'lo b'shar kol mashkin. You should not knead it with anything that is thick, that would thicken it, wine, oil, or any other drink or juice, probably fruit juice. So this is the bread that it looks oni, not because of its snapped in half into a piece, but because it is something that is made with materials that keep it poor, that keep it flat and reduced. Okay, so this is halach ma'anya. This is the bread of anya, oni. We have four different explanations just right off the bat of what lechem oni could mean. Is it she'onin alav darim harbe? That's probably the headline, things that we speak about a lot. It occasions us to speak a lot. It's just a slice. It's affliction, the way the Egyptians afflicted us. And it's made with material. It's not made with anything that makes it puffed up. It's made with without any of the wine, oil, or any other juice that would make the bread taste good, basically. Okay, so that's halach ma'anya lechem oni. I'm going to stop here just for 1 second to see everyone's faces just once again. I'm going to move on in just a second to kol dichvin yetei v'yechol. I wanted to say that is a question that one of our students, an alumni of the yeshiva, Eliana Fishman, wrote to me and said, how could we ask this year for anybody who is hungry to come and eat? We're not even allowed to ask anyone to come who's not hungry. So are we going to be lying when we say that line? Are we going to cut that line? So that occasioned me to look into the line and see the different interpretations of it, which we're going to look at in just a moment. But just wanted to pause here if there are any questions, comments. In this bite-sized version of learning together, we could have bite-sized questions. Okay, and you're welcome to chat it. I may have muted you and you can't speak. You're not allowed to.
I did have a
email
thought.
Alexa, but you're welcome to chat a question. Alex, are you trying to say something?
Yeah, I did have a thought when I saw the different explanations of what lechem oni is. It surprised me that they felt a need to find other explanations. Like
Other
why?
explanations to what? What was the one that was so obvious to you?
I mean, maybe it's just like, I've been influenced by one of those explanations more than others, but it seems obvious that it's like the way we translate it. Like, this is just like poor person's bread. It's like simple bread. Like, why did they need to come up with other reasons or other ways to interpret that?
Yeah. I think it's a great question. And I think as we'll see, as we look through the Haggadah, the idea of onin alav harbe, I think is sort of part of what it means to be a free person. In a sort of restricted view, there's only one interpretation for every word. Someone's telling you what it means, that's what it means, no questions. But in a world in which we're actually playing out freedom, well, what it means to be free in some ways is to have multiple possibilities, and that's what's going to keep us up all night, as opposed to the normal anxieties that keep not free people up all night, as we may relate to these days. That's just a thought, but it is interesting that Shmuel takes it out of its pshat, out of its simple meaning, and says, yeah, this is the answering bread. I think maybe as a way of sort of orienting us to what it might mean to have a discussion as free people on this night.
So the Mechilta, though, looks like it's also concerned with how you make it. And I'm wondering if there's a sort of very practical ramification of this discussion.
Yes, for sure, right? I wanted to demonstrate, this is the bread that I made without any of the ingredients that I wasn't supposed to make. And I'm sort of demonstrating it to you, like, see, this is the right bread that I'm bringing to the table. Okay, I'm gonna move on to our second question here, which is, how can we invite people in to eat with us this year? Kol dichvin yeteh v'yechol. This is just a simple Aramaic phrase that literally translates as Kol shera'ev yavo v'yochal. Whoever is hungry, let them come and eat. So first of all, I wanted to just say that there are a number of medieval interpreters who just say this straight up. That's exactly what it means. You open up your door and you're supposed to invite hungry people to come in. It's the obligation of every person to eat the first night of Pesach, so we invite anyone who doesn't have. That's like the obvious way to interpret this line. Whoever doesn't have to eat should come to me. These are medieval interpreters of the Haggadah. The Ritva says, guests don't eat at the synagogue, rather in homes, in a manner of leaning and freedom, derech cherut. As we say, all who are hungry, come and eat. Everybody should come and eat. So there is a way in which we read. I don't want to take this interpretation away from people, which is to say, yes, when I say kol dichvin yeteh v'yechol, part of what I mean, or maybe in some contexts, what I mean is anybody who is hungry should come inside my house and sit down at the table and eat the food that I am serving. But I want to show you that there are some other interpretations that it didn't just start this year. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. First of all, one that's sort of related but not exactly the same. We say this, Anu Amrim Kain, ki b'Mitzrayim hayu avotenu re'evim min halechem. In Egypt, our ancestors were hungry, they were lacking bread. V'ayom yesh lanu lechem le'achol hasova. But today we have enough to eat and be satisfied. We have plenty of bread. And u'lasvia re'evim, and we can satisfy those who are hungry so they can eat at our table. And this seems to be less of a direct invitation and more of a statement of abundance. Like, it's not literally that I'm inviting people to eat with me, although I might, if they happen to be walking by, I might, have them come in. But it's more of a, look how far we've come. Kol dichvin yeteh, anybody who is hungry can come and eat with me because we are so far removed from the state of slavery that we used to be, and that we lived in Mitzrayim. I think this also sort of reflects its original context in the Bavli. I said that Halach Ma'anya only shows up in Babylonian Haggadah, doesn't show up in Eretz Yisrael. This is a story from the Bavli of one of the Babylonian sages who, not related to Pesach, seems to say this line, and it's a sort of an interesting story, which I'm going to read to you here. Amar le Rava le Rafram bar Papa. So Rava says that Rava says to Rafram bar Papa, Leimalan mar mahane mile malyata dahava avid Ravuna. Tell us something great that Rav Huna used to do. And Rafram Bar Papa, who apparently knows Rav Huna and his activities, or remembers them, he lists a whole bunch of things that Rav Huna used to do, which were very admirable. And the last one that he lists is Ki Hava Karich Rifta, whenever he would make a sandwich, whenever he would call it Korech, when he would make, any kind of sandwich, not just the Hillel sandwich, we would wrap up a sandwich with bread. Hava Patech Lebabe, he would open up his gate, V'amar, Kol man ditzarich leite v'leichol, anybody who needs to, or anybody who needs, should come and eat. So Rav Huna seems to be inviting people to eat anytime he has a meal, which is way beyond. That's not once a year. That's not on Pesach night. That is anytime he would eat, Rav Huna would do this. And Rava responds to Rava from Bar Papa, Rava who asked, tell me some great stories of Rav Huna. Rava says, Kulu matzina mekayamna. I could have done any of these other things, which I cut out for you. All the other things that Rav Huna did, I could have done those too. I'll be able to do them. Levar miha, except for this one. Dilo matzini leme'aved. I can't do this. I can't invite everyone to eat with me. Mishum dinafishe b'nei chayala de because there are so many, in the Babylonian Talmud text, there's so many soldiers in machoza. That is to say, so many hungry people who want to eat with me, soldiers who are, only eating their rations, that if I were to do it, the demand would outstrip the supply. I don't have enough to feed everybody. And Rashi actually takes that and says, it's not about soldiers, just there are too many, there are too many poor people in machoza, and they would eat up everything I have. So if you feel like, actually, I can't literally say, Kol dichfin yetei v'yechol, kol man tetzarich leitei v'leichol. You're in good company. Rava also couldn't do it, and apparently it was like a very unusual thing that Rav Huna thought he could do that. Somebody chatted a question to say whether or not this was something that that other people are saying based on Jews and non-Jews. You're going to get to that explanation right now. So just to start off, there is a literal interpretation. Anybody who's hungry, come and eat. It might just be a statement of abundance. Like, I have so much food, anybody who wants could eat. Not really inviting everybody, but I'm just saying I could. And then there's Rav Huna, which is, he would do it every day, every single day. Whenever he was eating, he would invite anybody to eat. And that was above and beyond. Like, normal people shouldn't do that. Even Rava couldn't do it. That was only Rav Huna who had enough to be able to do that. Okay, now we're getting into some practical reinterpretations that might apply this year. This is a tshuva from the Gaonim that appears in Abu Draham, who is a later Spanish commentator on the Siddur, but he preserves some older tradition. So I'm gonna read that for you. Katav Rab Matitya, Mashana Agulomar Kol Dichfin Yetei V'Yechol. When they say anybody who's hungry, come and eat, Kachaya Mina Agavot. That was the tradition of old. Shayu Magbiin Shulchanoteim. They would lift up, and this day they had their own tables. Like everybody had like a mini sort of TV dinner tray. They would lift up their tables. Velo ayu sogrin daltoteim. They wouldn't even shut their doors. Va'ayu omrim kacha. They would say this: Kedei she'avo Yisrael. And would come in, and they would do it, and they would be able to eat with the people who are having the seder, and they would get a reward for this. But now, Rav Matityahu, who's living in the 9th century, says, our circumstances have changed. But now, this is really an invitation for anybody who needs a seder to come and eat. But now, we open the door and say, whoever's hungry, come and eat. And there are non-Jews and Jews mixed in a mixed neighborhood together. So that's not exactly what we're intending to do, is to feed the whole world. We're actually just trying to invite people to have seder who need to have a seder. So what do? Mifarnasim otam bitchila. We actually feed the poor early. We send out Pesach food in advance so that all the poor people have what to eat in advance of the Seder, so they won't have to actually walk around and beg during Seder night. Now, after that's been done, after we distributed the food, then we lift up and say, whoever is hungry, come and eat, knowing that we've already fed them. And so why do we say this nowadays? Meaning we already fed them. So why am I saying all who are hungry, come and eat? We say it because it's what we used to say. Now, I think this is like a particularly apt application of this year, which is to say two things. Number one, why do we say these texts that we don't literally mean? First of all, we just say them because it's tradition, and we're not giving up on that tradition. Even though this year we can't do it, there's a reason to say it. And also there's a need to make sure this year, of any year, we can think of, that poor people have enough to eat in advance. And there are places that do that, Masbia, other places that are willing to go and make sure that everybody has a Seder in advance, so people don't have to worry the night of Seder to go around and see if anyone's opening their door. And that's something that we could actually take on this year ourselves. So a second interpretation of this is, why do we say Kol Dichvin Yetei V'Yechol? We say it because we know we've already fed them. Nobody is hungry because we in advance fed all the poor people. We made sure that they're having their Seder. And we say the line because it's Kaminag Rishonim, when they used to do it live and not do it in advance. Even though this year we do it in advance, we still say the line because we used to say it that way. Okay, I'm moving to the end. The last interpretation of Kol Dichvin Yetei V'Yechol is a sort of more halachic interpretation, where actually, who am I speaking to? It's not those people out there who are hungry, but rather it's the people at my own table. Who am I addressing? I am addressing the people who have made themselves hungry because they wanted to enter the Pesach Seder with te'avon, with desire to eat. That is to say, you're supposed to enter the Seder hungry, so that when you eat the matzah, you're really, really hungry for it. That's the best way to eat the matzah. And so when I'm saying Kol Dichvin Yetei V'Yechol, what I'm actually speaking to are the people who have made themselves hungry. So that's, and we have a great version of the Shibbolei Aleket, another medieval Italian sage says, B'chi kol adam potech picho b'leilei Pesach. Is it really the case that everybody opens their door on the night of Pesach? V'omer kol mi sheraev yavo v'yochal imi, and it says whoever is hungry should come eat in me. That's not what people do. Ela kach anu omrim kol adam yar'iv atzmo be'erev Pesach v'chamesh sha'ot u'lamala kedei she'yitavel le'echol matzah. No, what are we doing? It's everybody should make themselves hungry on Erev Pesach, on leading into the Seder, from 5.5 hours, from like 11:30 in the morning and forward, so that they should enter into this with some sort of desire, to eat the matzah. So I think when we say Kol Dichvin Yetei V'Yechol, I think there are two ways beyond the simple way of understanding it, or the normal way of understanding it, that we can have in mind this year. The first is, can we feed the poor in advance? In the next week and a half, can we do the work to mitchila feed the poor, so no one's worrying on Seder night whether anyone's going to open their door, which we know is against the law in most countries now. And there's also a possibility that I'm speaking to myself, which is to say, what are my needs that I need to satisfy this year? And Kol Dichvin, whoever is hungry, that is to say, in my house, whoever in my local experience is hungry, and you can take that metaphorically or literally, let them come and eat. I want to provide for them because they've been making themselves hungry in advance of being able to eat the matzah. So my hope is that when we say Kol Dichvin Yetei V'Yechol, we won't just be saying it as, oh, I wish I'm lying, I'm not really able to do this, but I'm going to say it anyways. But actually, we have some options of interpretation where we can put out there the possibility that either we fed the poor in advance, and so we're just sort of noting that we've done that and saying it as a minhag, and we're talking about our own company who's in the room itself and the way in which we are hungry in some ways, and this is going to be a moment in which we're going to satisfy that hunger. So thank you so much for joining for the bite size, and I'll see you here tomorrow at 8:30 when we look at Mishnah.